Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello, Rush Nation. Welcome along to another Flagship show. We're here again. Free agency is well underway. Me and Murf back in the chairs again. Trying to get a run together. It's 2-2, Murf. That's unusual for a little while now.
I know. Well, IRs and health and work schedules on your part and all the stuff that you've had going on. It's just been crazy. But yeah, I think listen, it's always good to get in the rhythm now. I think this is a good time of year. I always think this is the time of year for fantasy football that if you're plugged in now,
yep,
you're going to give yourself the best chance to win, because I think before the draft, especially if you're in a dynasty league, you've got a really good opportunity to just take advantage of some of these free agency deals.
Correct.
Having said that, I think we talked about this a little bit last week, that it hasn't felt like a massive rush in terms of what's happened so far. And I still get this impression now that I'm not overly enthused. I don't think there's any real game-changing transactions that's happened. I think there's a couple of teams that have done well.
In terms of NFL,
kind of a bit of both. I think a bit of both. We're going to go through a list of names.
We are.
And I look at this list and I'm not overly inspired about a ton of these. There's a couple, but I'm not looking at these thinking these are huge game changers in the world of fantasy football. And I think we talked about this last week. I think with the NFL draft coming, I think we're going to see some trades. And I think we're going to see some things happen for sure. But right now, I look at the landscape of fantasy football and I'm thinking, not that much has changed in terms of,
which is weird because there's a lot of names
there's a lot of names changing, but none of them
people with rosters is going to take a little while here.
I think it's more the quarterback situations and how that settles down. That's the knock-on effect to all of these things. And I think if we can, I think that's the part that when I go into projections and start thinking about it, I might change my opinion. But I normally think there's some really big key free agent players that sign for teams that really, I think, move the needle for teams. And I think IDP massively, which we're not going to touch too much upon today, but I think we will do. I think there's been a lot of change in IDP, and I think there's a lot of significant change still to happen in the IDP world. I think some teams have added really well through offensive line. I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals getting Orlando Brown. I think those sorts of acquisitions are going to heavily advance their offense and what Joe Burrow and offense can do. Don't get me wrong. There are individual circumstances, but I haven't seen the blockbuster, wow, this is the game-changing moment that we're going to see. Like, you think last year, and last year, you think about
Hill and Devontae Adams and
Chris those Kirk's trades happened. Oh, yeah, Chris Kirk, the huge signing of Chris Kirk, but AJ then Brown, all the Jags offense. Yeah, exactly that. We haven't had that. There hasn't been a transaction that's got me out of my seat and gone, whoa, that's huge on either side of the ball, really. And
DJ Moore's probably the biggest name traded so far this offseason, I think.
The one pick for DJ Moore, I think, is probably, and I'm a bit meh on DJ Moore. I think, he's not. By the way, I'm promoting Bob Lung here.
You are. I had a chat with Bob Lung on the weekend, so I know hopefully that'll be out next week, so that'll be fun.
If anyone's asking, Big Guy Fantasy Sports, that's not me, that's Bob. Go check out Bob Lung. But who's also you announced this week, he's doing the UKFFC.
He is. He's going to be at UKFFC. He's going to host a Q&A for us. He's going to bring some consistency guides. He is flying what was originally him and his wife over for a few days to London and then a trip to Paris. But he told us Saturday that his two youngest daughters have got wind. They're coming to London and they're tagging along as well. So what was going to be a nice little short trip for him and the wife for a couple of days has turned out to a family outing now. So that's
amazing.
But yeah, he can't wait.
That's going to be good.
It's insane. Let's go. Someone of Bob Lung's caliber can come over and make that is phenomenal. And we're hoping Bob Lung coming over will encourage others to make the trip in future as well. So
yeah, No, it's going to be great. I think more will come as you do more work with the UK FFC. So looking forward to that one for sure.
Anyway, should we get stuck in?
Let's get into this list. Yeah, because we've got a long list to get through here.
Yeah,
go on then.
I'm going to start close to home because this is one that I know from our chats in our Bucks group when it occurred. Is one you're rather opinionated on, shall we say? It was fun. Literally, our chat went from okay to Murf, full-blown Murfness took over. Murf, Baker Mayfield to the Bucks. Why are you not a fan? And I think not being a fan is underselling it slightly.
It is. I honestly, if I'm sitting here thinking of the last 10 years of Buccaneers FA signings, he would go straight in the top 3, the worst FA signings before he's played. Now, I'm not a Baker Mayfield fan. I wasn't a Baker Mayfield fan when he was picked 1 overall. I felt massively that was the wrong decision. I always felt that Josh Allen was the... Well, I was a bit question marked on Josh Allen, but I felt that the talent was probably the best for him. But I felt that there were some things in development he needed. And then we've seen what's happened. I thought Darnold was a better prospect than Baker Mayfield. And you can kind of question, is that true? Is that not true?
Yep.
I didn't like the antics in college. Felt that I haven't liked his antics in the NFL. I think he's an average QB. I think talent-wise, there is some talent there. I'm not sitting here saying he's the worst quarterback that's ever played the position. I'm not sitting here saying that he can't win football games. It's the attitude and the mentality for me that I have severe question marks. And this goes back to a long history of Buccaneers teams that have not had the right character, have not had the right individuals playing on the team. And that's my problem, is we've gone through this huge cull of getting rid of the Chris Bakers, the Brent Grimeses, the people who refuse to play, people joking around, laughing around after huge defeats and playing ping pong and just having a giggle like it doesn't matter. And you got players like JPP, seasoned Super Bowl winners, even before he won a ring with the Bucks. Questioning, why am I even here? Why am I even playing on this team? This is a joke. People are literally just laughing around after we've just been embarrassed. And it's cost coaches their jobs because they've not managed this. And then we get the Brady effect. And the whole thing for the Brady thing for me was whether he lasts 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, however long he was going to last. And it's turned out to be 3 years, right? The whole point was to instill this ongoing culture of excellence, of setting a standard and saying, this is the standard that we're going to follow. This is what we're going to implement, and a blueprint to, even when we're not going to be in our best years, where we have to cull talent and nurture young talent, we're going to set a level of standard that we're going to meet and follow, because that's the example that's been set by the greatest player of all time. So to go away from that blueprint and to get somebody who is very questionably driven, and I mean, I question his motivation, I question his attitude, I question his he's fallen out with teammates, he's fallen out very publicly, he doesn't take responsibility for his performances, it's always someone else's fault, someone else's problem. He's on his 4th team in 5 years. He's run out of teams. Like, teams are just literally, and listen, he was okay at the Rams last year, but a very small sample size. Didn't work at Carolina, didn't work. You can argue that he had a good little spell at the beginning with the Browns, but I'd argue the defense was a huger part to play of that than Baker's offense. We look at his career stats. They're nothing to really write home about. We're talking about a guy who's got a 61% completion rate, which is well under what is a standard required to play at the position. If you're not throwing at 65%, you have to really have a good look in the mirror at what's going on. He's had talent. He's had players to throw the ball to in his career. I mean, his best season was his rookie year, where he threw for 63.8%. That 2019 season, less than 60%. Even last season, he threw for 60%. TDs have dropped off absolutely through a cliff. He's never thrown more than, his rookie season was his best season. And then he's just never kicked on from it in terms of touchdown percentage. In 2019, he threw 21 interceptions and 22 touchdowns. That was the year they went to the playoffs. And they went to the playoffs, and everyone's like, oh, we took him to the playoffs. Yeah, but he threw 21 interceptions and 22 touchdowns. That's what I mean by the defense. Everyone's like, oh, it was all Baker. It wasn't Baker. It wasn't. They got there in spite of him. In fact, sorry, that wasn't the year they went to the playoffs. They went 6-10 that year. The following season, he cut that TD interception rate right down to 8. And that is when he did have a half-decent year. So 62.8% completion rate. Yardage was down 3,500 yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions.
They had Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, so they're never going to be...
That's what I mean. But listen, whatever. He led some game-winning drives. But my problem is, air yards fairly average, pretty much hovering under 7 in his career. The quarterback rating, I mean, it's never a great stat, but he's only ever broken 60 once, and that was in the year that he went to the playoffs. His quarterback rating last year was 24.5. I mean, that's pretty bad. 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions last year in 10 starts and 12 games. We're not sitting here and saying that this guy is good. He's okay, and you can win in spite of him with a good D. But for me, it's the decline. It's ever since he sort of hit a peak, it's really, really gone backwards very quickly. And then he's in interviews and he's blaming the defense. He's blaming the play calling. He's blaming the coaching. The year that for me, that's an issue. There's no accountability. And with all his previous antics, he doesn't grow up. He doesn't learn.
So the one thing I'm going to temper that with myself, is that the opportunity and the aforementioned Tom Brady effect within the organization stays. Tampa have got some long-standing, high-caliber professionals now. Guys like Levante David, guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, that I feel is a very combined unit in Tampa. I don't feel there is very much an iron that it is a team and they deliver. The defense very much so with their gravedigger team and things like that, right? They are a unit combined. I'd like to think that I think we've seen over the last 2 years a more grown-up Baker potentially than what first come into the league. And I'd like to think those guys...
I disagree. I disagree.
I think taking the chance to go to the Rams and things like that, I think he's going to take that on. And I think going to Tampa with those guys, I think they'll hold him to account. I think if he calls them out, they'll tell him back. And I think actually, if he wants to bond with the team and be part of that team, I think the opportunity is there. And as you say, he hasn't got wonderful quality, but he has got qualities. And I think if he allows himself, they will come through.
8 months ago, when he signed for Carolina, before opening day, he printed his own merchandise having a dig at the Browns. That's not a sign of somebody who is mature, taking an opportunity of a new team, of a new franchise. He really, really wound up the old fan base by printing his own merchandise. Like we're sitting here like Baker Mayfield is the second coming of an elite player. He's a nothing
some of that
player.
will be the way the organisation treated him with the Deshaun Watson trade, and there's a bit of sour grapes there and things. So you don't know what the guy was told behind the doors from the office.
Of course you don't. But you don't go out and print your own merchandise, bigging up a big rematch. Like I just think that for me is an immaturity. If you're sitting there and you've got a new chance with a new team that have traded for you, that have gone, you've done there. It's your new team. You've disrespected your new team because you've made it all about you. It's all about Baker versus the Browns.
It's out of his system.
Yes, it might be out of his system, but I just that's what I mean. This is 8 months ago. This isn't 4 years ago, 5 years ago. This is 8 months ago he did this.
Fine.
This is my problem. Is it's continual repeated mistakes of how he behaves. Now you're right. Now listen, Tampa have an organization of players who are very senior, who have that ability to potentially say, dude, it's your fourth team in 5 years. You mess this up, you're done. Like you might as well go look at XFL teams because this is it for you. And maybe he might realize it's his last chance.
And I do think Bruce Arians being in the background will help that as well. Although he's not involved day to day, I do think as a voice in his ear and his shoulder, it will help.
I think if that was the case, I think if he was involved, we'd have seen involvement last year. When things came off the rails last year with the Buccaneers organization, I'd like to think Bruce was stepping in, and I don't think he overly was as much.
But I do think he's on the training field every day. I do think he's listening to coaches and standing on the sidelines during practices. So, he's not standing on the sidelines, he's in his little golf cart. But I think he's there. I think he'll have a conversation with people. behind the scenes, walking back to the dressing room, that sort of thing. So,
I think for me, if I was sitting there and I was like, if this was me, this was my decision, I'd have gone with Jacoby Brissett, right? And I'm not sitting here and saying Jacoby Brissett is not. Jacoby Brissett for me is not a huge improvement on Baker Mayfield, but what I do think is what he does have is that attitude, that little bit of accountability. He's a good mentor. I think he would work with someone like Kyle Trask and try and get something out of it. Whereas Baker Mayfield is going to just wash his hands of Kyle Trask and go, "You're my competition. I want nothing to do with you," pretty much. And I think we're sitting here like the Buccaneers spent the 64th pick, a late second round pick 2 years ago on Kyle Trask. People are assuming Baker's going to be the starter with the money that's being paid. It's $4 million. Forget the $8 million. There's a load of incentives in there. No, I don't think Baker's
a coin toss in a minute. It's a coin toss.
I think it is a coin toss. I think it's a coin toss. So I think I'd go 51-49 Trask because he's been in the building. But it is a new offensive coordinator that does help Baker Mayfield. I think if it was an existing holdover system, I would say that Trask would have a huge advantage. I don't. I think he has a very narrow advantage because he knows the players. He's worked with Evans. He's worked with Godwin. And I think it's how the thing is, and Mike Evans is going to play the biggest part in all of this because if Mike Evans does not get on with Baker Mayfield, and you've got to remember there's a huge college rivalry there, Texas, Oklahoma. You've got to, they'll put that to bed. That won't be a big thing unless one of them makes it a big thing. But I do think if he doesn't win over Baker, if Baker doesn't come in and win over Mike Evans, he will struggle. He will struggle to embed.
Before we move on, because we could obviously do a Bucks podcast on this, but the one guy for me that needs to almost be instructed, I don't think he will be, is Ryan Jensen. Ryan Jensen needs to go to Baker and go, right, this is what we do here. This is how it is. And I think he will hold him to account. And I agree. He's the man he's going to spend most of his time with being the centre. I think he's the one that needs to shut Baker up when he moans at someone in practice for a drop and things like that. I think a lot falls on Ryan Jensen. And actually, as somebody to do that role, I don't think you can have a better person than Ryan Jensen, to be honest with you.
But Ryan Jensen won't take any crap. And I think it will be interesting to see what happens. I think now we have to. This is Baker Mayfield's last chance in the NFL. This is his last life. It's his last hand. He's
as a star. Yeah, definitely.
If he has a decent run at it, then he's going to build himself a platform to win this job going forward. If he doesn't, and I don't expect him to, I'm going to be brutally honest here. I'm not expecting him to. I think we're going to see similar to what we saw with the whole Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think we could see these guys alternate all year. To be perfectly honest with you. Then I think Baker Mayfield is going to be finished in the NFL. But this is, like you say, this is an opportunity for him. I don't expect it to work. I'm not expecting him to deliver, but at the same token, he could. And if he surprises me, I'll be the first person to come on here and say, do you know what? Fair play to him. And then I've said this about a number of players. Leonard Fournette is a famous example of someone who I absolutely thought would flame in the NFL. And then continue to, and I hated his attitude and I hated the way that he was at the Jaguars. And then he went through some growth. And Bruce Arians pulled him to one side and said, I'm going to cut you. I'm going to cut you. And he went through some growth. And fair play to him. He turned me, and I'm not one of these players that will just stick and go, oh, I don't like him now. I'm never going to like him. I've grown to respect Leonard Fournette. I know it's not ended brilliantly, but, at the end of the day, the guy won a Super Bowl and he turned his attitude around and he realized, but it will take a strong coach. I don't think it'd be interesting to see what Dave Cannells does. If he is, and I don't know enough about him as an OC to if he's going to literally grab Baker by the throat and say, "Hey, you need to sort this out. This is literally it for you. I'm taking a chance. You're as your OC, you're the guy I've picked.
Fine.
So you're as much. I'm not just doing this for you. This is for me, and you got to back me. We're a team now. But I don't think it's going to hurt him long term. But we'll move on. But
20 minutes
I'm not
in.
happy.
Fine.
Yeah, I'm not.
Fantasy wise,
there you go.
Fantasy wise,
I'm
other
not
than
touching
the
him.
dubious, does he start? Does he not start? No.
I don't think there's enough. I think, and the problem that you have now is we're going to need to see what happens in camp, right? We're going to need to see how early is someone going to be.
It feels a very Drew
Lock,
Geno Smith Seahawks battle from last year.
It does a little bit, but the problem is I don't see a Geno Smith upside with either of these players. I think for me, if I'm sitting here for fantasy and I was thinking, I'm an owner of Chris Godwin. I think Chris Godwin is recession proof here a little bit from either quarterback. I think he benefits more from Baker because those short passes, intermediate passes. Baker's not going to launch loads downfield. It'll be short, intermediate passes. Chris Godwin, I think, will be not too badly hurt because of the range of where he plays in terms of volume and in terms of yardage. I think he's going to be. I don't see a huge touchdown volume for him, but in PPR catches, etc., I think he'd be fine. The Mike Evans situation, I think, is scary. I think for me, with either of those quarterbacks, if it's Baker, I'm severely concerned about the upside of, because Mike Evans is always relied on getting 8 to 10 minimum 10 touchdowns a year, except for last season. And that's what he's needed to be a top 24 fantasy player in previous seasons. He's needed those consistent red zone targets and consistent red zone touchdowns.
Big games and quiet games,
Don't see it. I don't see where he gets there with Baker Mayfield. So I think for me, I look at this and thinking if you're a dynasty player, Mike Evans is someone I'm kind of like, you can't sell him because his ceiling's gone.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a 1-year situation. He's a hold. I wouldn't sell him. I wouldn't buy him. I'd hold and see what happens. But I think you're in for a rough year. I think he's going to be on your bench a lot more than he probably would be. Having said that, I think if you get Kyle Trask and Kyle Trask can fire with that arm strength that he does have, that will bring Evans into play. And I think that could be a benefit. So we need to see what happens. But I think I'm looking at this and I'm thinking even Russell Gage is someone who, if he can get over those injuries, could benefit from a Baker Mayfield offense. Chris Godwin will benefit from and I'd say benefit. I don't think they've got huge fantasy ceilings. I'm not talking about top 12 here, but I'm talking top 24, top 36, top 40 players.
They're startable.
I'd look at Godwin and say the fringe wide receiver 2 with some potential wide receiver 1 weeks. Gage looking at sort of a top 40 player with a potential to get to a top 24 just purely on the PPR volume and catches. Those two I think could potentially do quite well. Mike Evans I'm worried about.
I'm going to move us on because we've got a lot to get through. So Aaron Rodgers all but done to the Jets. Where do you sit on this one?
Well, listen, I think Aaron Rodgers in the decline of his career. I looked at him last year. I think that arm is a struggle. The one thing he does have there is playmakers. Garrett Wilson will make plays.
And Alan
it looks
Lazard,
like they're going to bring in Alan Lazard joining. But Aaron Rodgers talking about he never gets weapons, and then he gets the guy he's been throwing to for the last 5 years. I mean, you couldn't make that up. And
with Randall Cobb as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, bring Mercedes Lewis. Just bring them all over. Like, just bring the entire reject Packers offense over.
Because they all did so well for the Packers.
Exactly that. Like, this is what I mean. Like, Randall Cobb was great like 7 years ago. Cool. I think from an NFL perspective, it's one of those. It's a nasty contract to get on. I don't love the contract. It's going to cost the Jets a lot of money. Do they become better? Yeah, because really the quarterback is the worst position that they've got. They've got a great defense. They've got decent offensive weapons. And then you've got someone like Aaron Rodgers who will win them games. Do I think they challenge for a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers? Absolutely not. Do I think they're a playoff team with Aaron Rodgers? Yeah, I do. I think they get into the playoffs. I think they'll be competitive. They're in a tough division, but I think they're a playoff contention team. They'll be better with Aaron Rodgers. There's no doubt. He's better than Zach Wilson, and he's better than every quarterback they've had over the last sort of 10 years plus. So even in his current state.
I think fantasy-wise, when the move happens, early drafts, I think we'll see Rodgers climb boards on hype a little bit more. But actually, I think by the time the season starts, he'll stagnate back down to where he almost was last year.
Yeah, I think you're looking at him. If I'm sitting here making a prediction now, I would. Oh, lovely light! Look at that. if I'm looking
my light bulb moment.
If I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers, right, and I haven't done any projections, I haven't sat here and he hasn't gone yet. We've got to caveat this. He will go, but it's not gone. Aaron Rodgers for me is going to be roundabout bottom end QB1. That's kind of where I see him to be, and he's going to be in this range but I don't see upside. And for me, I'm rather chasing upside at that range. Looking at some of the QBs you could pick up in sort of that 10 to 14 range. I'm thinking he's probably going to go in a similar range to players like Tua, Daniel Jones, I think that's the kind of range you're going to see. Maybe he goes slightly before because of the name recognition, new team, Garrett Wilson.
That little hype.
I don't know. Yeah, I think for me, I'd rather take the safe bet of someone like a Kirk Cousins or the upside of someone like a Daniel Jones who's got a bit of rushing ability, who can, on the back of a new contract with a great new tight end, could potentially develop. So I can't see a situation where I'm going to be buying Aaron Rodgers anywhere. I don't think this is going to be a long marriage. I see him playing maybe 2 maybe 3 years before he retires. The arm's gone. You're not going to see a lot of deep balls. You're not going to see, but what he will do is game manage them. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's going to play risk-free football. There'll be a better team with him. I don't think it's enough for them to win a Super Bowl. But for the Jets fans, I can see why they're excited. But I'm not excited for it. I just think
the thing I'm looking forward to most of it is Aaron Rodgers in the New York media. Because he's in Green Bay. Yes, Green Bay is a huge football town. But it isn't New York.
Yeah.
And it's how is he going to... he loves being the centre of attention. He makes himself the centre of attention a lot of the time. Well, New York's going to give him the centre of attention. And I'm intrigued because if they don't fall on his side, that relationship could sour very quickly.
Doesn't very quickly. They're not going to fall on his side. They're not on his side. They're not going to fall on his side. No one's going to like Aaron Rodgers. Listen, I don't need more Aaron Rodgers in the media in my life. There's enough. Pat McAfee gives him a platform. I watched his interview. It was a load of crap. Listen. We need less Aaron Rodgers media, not more. So I'll just be tuning it out. But
super.
Good luck to him. Hope it works.
We'll stay in New York then. You mentioned Daniel Jones got a new tight end, and he has. Darren Waller traded from the Raiders to the Giants now. I
think Daniel Bellinger's dad was Daniel Bellinger's dad's a bit pissed off.
Yeah, but I think apparently he went in and had a lot of 2 tight end sets coming out of New York.
Well, I look at their receiver core and I think, they got.
They're going to have to play a lot of 2 tight end sets.
They're going to have to play a lot of 2 tight end sets. I think, I think they're 2 good tight ends. Darren Waller's a short-term solution. He's a short-term solution. He's already in his 30s. He's going to play. He's already had injuries. He missed a lot of time in the last 2 years. He's going to be there 1 to 2 years. It's not a long-term thing. It's not cost a lot. I think it's pick 100. Yeah, I like the move for a now move is short-term. Do I think the Giants are in a window? No. Do I think they could have maybe got something in that pick? Who knows? It is the 100th pick, and Darren Waller is a good tight end, and you've got Daniel Bellinger there. I think it is a. I don't mind it. I think
fantasy-wise, it takes Waller out of that echelon of he had, I don't know, Kittle, Pitts, Kelsey, and then kind of Waller. I think he takes out of that. I think he now goes into the bracket with the Gerald Everetts of the world and people like that. Yeah.
I wouldn't even say Gerald Everett. I'd say he's in the Evan Ingram.
I like Gerald Everett.
He's in the Evan Ingram and Darren. I think you move him away from that sort of elite tier and good tier, and he's in that upside tier. He's in that upside tier of potential players who could make a leap, but we're not expecting loads. He's a bottom end tight end 1. He'll put up some points. It'll be decent. He kills Daniel Bellinger's fantasy value completely. If you had him in Dynasty, you're probably a bit sad. But look, I think it's a fine move for the Giants. And as you say, you never know. You might see him play wide. Given the fact, they have re-signed Sterling Shepard, but we know he's always crocked. They don't have a lot of options here, the Giants at wide receiver. They're probably going to go into the draft and pick one. I'd expect them to go and get a decent wide receiver here. They can't get one at pick 100 now, so that would have been a good range to try and get one, but maybe they might go a bit earlier and get one maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round. I expect them to draft one because, the last time they went in the 1st round and got one, Kadarius Toney, he's no longer on the roster. Kenny Golladay, they paid all that money to in free agency, 80-odd million. Yep. I know it wasn't all guaranteed. He's gone. That didn't work. Yep. So, for me, if I'm sitting there at the Giants GM and I've got some money to play with, I'm signing DJ Chark.
Okay, we'll get on to him later.
We'll get on to him as a player.
I think that's a great
And
idea.
I think if you get someone like DJ Chark to offset, outside, because they don't have what they got. Darius Slayton is the only guy on their roster who's a big outside
Shepard
guy.
Can stretch the field. Yeah, I like that. But
he's cocked. So,
that's it. So I'm going to group a load of these together now because the Carolina Panthers have been making moves all off season. Restructured their whole offense. They've gone up to the 101. And to add to what I guess we presume will be a rookie QB coming in, they've given some support, which is nice to see because quite often rookie QBs come into this league, a la Trevor Lawrence, and have very little. But the Panthers have gone out. They've signed Miles Sanders at running back. They've yesterday signed Adam Thielen from the Vikings. They've added Andy Dalton as an experienced QB to come and sort of oversee things, I imagine. And Hayden Hurst as well at tight end. And the rumor is as well, as we mentioned, DJ Shark, that he is someone they're looking into the possibility of signing in the coming days as well. So proper support for a young QB if that's the route they go in the draft.
And that says to me, we're not going to play the QB day one. You're not signing Dalton to the money that you've signed him to. And I think what it does, it takes the pressure off. It's very smart coaching because, listen, Trevor Lawrence is an elite quarterback prospect, one of the best prospects we've ever seen come into this league. Joe Burrow coming off his Heisman his senior year, again, fairly elite prospect coming in. These were the only day one starters really in the last couple of years. Kyler Murray, again, Heisman winner, elite player. You know, these were really the only guys that have been drafted in recent years who have come in and started opening day. Players like Baker Mayfield didn't start opening day. You know, he started behind, was it Tyrod? Tyrod Taylor, I think, was ahead of him on the depth chart for a way. Yeah. You know, don't think Darnold did start, and maybe he started straight away. I don't know. That didn't really pan out all that well. Josh Allen started straight away, actually. Josh Allen was straight in there, but you know, Patrick Mahomes didn't. He sat a year. Nope, I think what it does, signing someone like Andy Dalton, is it gives you
a chance to look at them in camp, and if they're not ready, you've got an out.
And it's a 2-year deal. That's the thing. It wasn't a 1-year deal. They signed into a 2-year deal. Not lots of money. They could get out of it next year. If the rookie QB comes in second half of the season, they can pay $5.8 million and get rid of Andy Dalton. So they could move on from him. They're not tied to him for 2 years, but they have given him money over 2 years. It's cheap cap this year. It's a hit of about $2 million this year, but it's $8 million guaranteed. It says to me that they're looking at him thinking, we're probably going to play you the majority of this season. Mm-hmm. And then we'll see. And the moves they're making,
unless this rookie that they do hits the ground running, in which case, great. Yeah. You've got a superb backup and team leader in Dalton.
I think looking at the moves that David Tepper and this organization are making, it looks like they see the divisions and it is the divisions in play. And I think they're signing experienced veterans to go, let's try and win this now. If the wheels fall off, you know, they got Frank Reich. They got great coaching staff. What they've done on the coaching staff side is more impressive than what they've done on the player side. You know, they could win this division next year. They really, really could with what they've added. They've already got a good defense. They could do better. But I look at them and think, I just think they're going to start Dalton day one. I think they're just going to ease the QB, whoever it is, in and take. And do you know what's the best thing? Because you've got the best of both worlds. If Andy Dalton comes in and is crap, fine. You move to the QB, you lose nothing. He gets a bit of time, get a bit of exposure, and you ease him in slowly into a situation where he's not in the pressure cooker. Oh, well, the team's not going to win this year, so he can get some reps and get better. Or Andy Dalton takes this team to the cusp of a division title, and he usurps his career and has a chance. And he wasn't terrible last year, Andy Dalton. I think he got a bit of both here. I like the move. I think it's smart. It's not big money. It makes a lot of sense to me. I would say right now, Andy Dalton is going to be the starter day one. I think he's going to start a few games. He's not someone I'm buying in Dynasty because you're going to have that rookie QB behind him. It could be 4 weeks. It could be 10 weeks. It could be any amount of time. But at some point, he is going
Mariota and Ridder situation.
Yeah, a little bit, but you're going to have a much more high profile. You've got a much more high profile QB. Ridder was a third round pick. You've got the 101. This for me feels like this feels to me similar to the Baker Mayfield situation. We're going back to him, but we all knew at some point Baker was going to come in for Tyrod. It was when, not if. It was 4-5 games. Same with Justin Herbert. That was slightly accelerated because of the Tyrod Taylor again. Yep. he gets the needle in the lung, and then all of a sudden he can't play. That was 2 or 3 games. Same with Tua. You know, all these sorts of players. There was always going to be this. They'll take over at some point when, like the Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua situation. It's going to be similar to that. We know at some point it's good. Is it going to? We don't know when the bye week's going to be. That's always a good indication of when a team might make a move. Until we know that, it's going to be impossible to guess. We don't know who the QB is, so it's no point in even guessing. So I look at that and think, but I like Andy Dalton there as a fit. I think for Frank Reich, I think he'll do what he needs him to do. As you say, they've added Miles Sanders. I think that's a great pickup. That's an automatic uplift on what they had in that backfield last year.
I think it's good for Sanders for fantasy as well.
I think it's a great landing spot for Sanders for fantasy. If I had to sit there and handpick a place for him, that's probably one of the better ones. It's probably top 3, top 5 spaces I think I could have picked for him. So I think it's a great landing spot for him. I think I look at him now as a dynasty and a redraft buy, potentially. I wouldn't go all in, but I'd sprinkle some offers for him. I think that's a nice landing spot for him. He hasn't got a lot of competition there. He's going to compete with Hubbard. He'll be fine there. He'll be fine. Adam Thielen, love the landing spot for him. I love the landing spot for Adam Thielen. Again, if I had to sit there and...
If you're on a short-term win now dynasty team, but you're a piece short, Adam Thielen screaming cheap buy, flex buy, flex player all day long.
And he's contract.
He's not sexy, is he? Adam Thielen's not sexy.
Have you seen 3-year contract they gave him?
Yep. And if he's going to have a rookie QB, Adam Thielen in the slot is a great pickup to have.
Yeah, I love that move for him. I think it's great.
The only thing I think that was better for him, there was a rumor that he may have gone to the Chiefs, and I think actually the Chiefs would have been a huge landing spot for Adam Thielen. Without
Juju, Juju, I think Adam Thielen could have gone to the moon. But you're right. But I look at that move and think, Adam Thielen for me is someone who's going to go in the 7th, 8th, 9th round of drafts this year. I can see myself having a lot of Adam Thielen.
He's going to be this year's Brandon Cooks.
Already. I think absolutely. I look at there's always a player or two in that range
because he's not sexy, but you know what? You can put him in your starting lineup every week, and he's going to put points on your board.
I couldn't agree more. I sit there and think the landing spot, the QB, the system. We know with Frank Reich that he creates offense. Yeah,
and if they do sign DJ Shark, I think that helps Thielen too because Shark can stretch the field. If they stay healthy,
stretch the field.
Yeah. I like
or if they draft
offense.
One, or if they draft a receiver who's going to, if they draft a speedy receiver in round 2 who's going to stretch the field, really like it. I like what the Panthers are doing. I hate to say it, but I like what they're doing. They're building sensible players like Hayden Hurst, the blocking tight end, who's going to. I don't think he's great for fantasy, but I do think he's going to add something to that line. You know,
he's a decent receiver too, Hayden Hurst. For a rookie QB again, potentially at some stage in the season, Hayden Hurst is a nice little piece to have.
Big red zone target, big red zone target. It's going to help with the hand, with the space. I think their lack of field stretcher. I don't think Terrence Marshall Jr. is it. So I do think they need they do need a field stretcher, and someone like DJ Chark for me fits the bill perfectly.
It's one of the best ones available.
100% he is. I wouldn't be going Odell Beckham at this stage. I'd be taking DJ Chark if I was them as a young team. He's still fairly young. He's not in his prime. He showed last year when he was healthy what he can do. He's shown it at the Jags. Yeah, we've talked about.
You don't need to sell DJ Shark to me. You don't need to sell DJ Shark to me.
No, I know that. But I think it's smart business.
Awesome. So we've already established then that Adam Thielen is this year's Brandon Cooks. So we'll stick with Brandon Cooks. He isn't a free agent signing. He was traded to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, personally, I love this move for Brandon Cooks because I think actually for the first time in his career for a while, he's actually got a sound team around him and he's going to play a valid part of a competing team, which I think for him will be nice. From fantasy reasons, I don't like it.
I hate it for fantasy football. We know that Dak can't support tons of production at receiver. Like we've seen this now. You've got Gallup who's under contract and paid there. You've got
CeeDee Lamb who's go.
Exactly that.
Once Lamb who's the alpha they wanted to be, they didn't need Cooper.
Exactly that. So I think Cooks is there in the wind now. I think he's just a guy. He's just a guy on that roster. He'll make plays. He'll have a couple of decent weeks. People get a little excited about him because he has a couple of decent weeks. And he's going to end up in the concussion protocol. He'll be out for 2 weeks, and then we'll never see him again. That's what's going to happen with Brandon Cooks. I'm not interested. This is, for me, I understand why he's gone, because for him, he's going to potentially compete. They're probably the best team in that division. They're going to compete for the NFC. It's a weak NFC again this year so far. You know, you have to sit there and say the Cowboys are what, second, third favorites for the NFC going to the Super Bowl. I haven't looked at the odds, but I can't imagine they're going to be far off that range if they can get the mentality right. But I look at them and think Cook will contribute, but I don't sit here and love it.
No, me neither for Brandon Cooks. But I like
I like it for him personally. I think he'll do okay. I like it for the Cowboys. It's a cheap enough deal. He's not earning big money. They've traded a couple of fifth and a sixth. Like, fine, whatever. Are you going to get better in the fifth and the sixth from Brandon Cooks? No.
I think Brandon Cooks now goes from a wide receiver 2/3 that you could put in your lineup each week to a flex play. He's going to be able to put points on the board during bye weeks. And
I don't. Yeah, he's a bye week cover for me. He's someone that he's not someone I'd have on a roster, but he's someone.
He's one of those that
free agent.
Someone goes down injured, something like that. Brandon Cooks is decent stats on your bench to come in and do a job.
Well,
right?
he's
going to end with 700-800 yards and 4-5 touchdowns.
I don't even think he ends up with that. I think 6 and 4, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns, 40-50 catches. I think he's going to be bang average. And there's not enough. Dak doesn't put up enough to support those players. And you got to remember Peyton Hendershot's there, who he was targeting quite a bit. And then you've got other receivers that he'll throw to on occasion. I just don't see. I don't see this big ceiling. I don't see 700-800 for him unless he breaks off a couple of big runs, because I see him missing games because he always ends up in the concussion protocol. But look, I like Brandon Cooks. I wish him well. It's nothing personal. It's a mere for fantasy. It's a dead move, but for everyone else, it's awesome. Fine.
I am segueing tonight perfectly, and I'm going to keep doing it because we're talking about the Cowboys. Next one up hasn't got a team yet, but Zeke has been released.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised. I know the money was big, and I know that they had to make a move on him to save some money, and I get it. I just sit there and think, when they tagged, I thought it was a strange move to tag Tony Pollard. I don't understand why they couldn't get a deal done for Tony Pollard. I still think Zeke's got something in the tank.
I guess a caveat in Tony Pollard's deal was going to be, I want to be a starting running back. And that's why he wouldn't sign a deal, to allow him to keep Zeke.
Yeah, but...
He's like, you play me, or I go elsewhere and play.
Has he earned that right? I know he's all right, but he's not... Listen, he didn't beat out...
But I think if you're the front office of the Cowboys, you saw last year that actually you don't lose a lot. If anything, you gain slightly going from Zeke to Pollard.
No, but
as well as saving a bucket load of cash.
Well, you haven't saved this is the thing, right?
But
it's talking about a bucket load of cash. They're paying Zeke almost $12 million not to play for them.
Yep.
Listen, they've saved almost $5 million.
Yep.
Which $5 million is $5 million, but they're paying Zeke Elliott $12 million not to play for them. So that says to me
they can pay me not to play for them too if they want.
But this is what I mean. This says to me more about there's something that has gone horribly wrong with Zeke Elliott and the organization. Whether it was the talent drop-off, whether it's a fallout with the coaching, I don't know what it was. But there's something that hasn't come out that is going to come out. There's something there because you don't pay a running back $12 million to not play for you. You try and restructure the contract and you try and work something out. So the fact that they couldn't get around the table and work something out on that deal says to me quite significantly that it has all gone wrong. So listen, there's a clean break. They've made the move. They've saved nearly $5 million in space. They've burned nearly $12 million in cash, which is crazy for a running back. Shouldn't have paid him that much money anyway to begin with, but whatever, you've done it. He hasn't returned on those numbers, but whatever. Where he goes now is fascinating. Now, I think it's fascinating that he hasn't had that many visits and he hasn't had that many offers. I don't know. The Buccaneers are rumored to be interested in him.
Yep.
The interesting thing here with Zeke is everyone's going to sit here and say, well, he's going to want a big deal. He's not. He's not going to want a big deal. He's getting 12 mil. He's getting. I mean, he's been paid that money in his own right, but he's going to. Well, actually, he hasn't because it's base salary this year. So he's going to get 8.6 million this year. So he can play for the league minimum. He can play for the league minimum because he's still going to make 13 million nearly. He's not going to need a big.
Which says to me he'd prefer a competing team on a 1-year league minimum and then take the money after that elsewhere.
So then you're looking at who can deliver for him. So I'm looking at things like teams like maybe the Chiefs, if they could sort out what's going on in their running back room. Maybe not, but that's the sort of team I can see.
I don't think the Chiefs would go that way, but yeah.
The Bills could be a team that like that. They've moved on from Singletary. There could be an opportunity to bring someone like him in. just to finish around the goal line, take some of the pressure off Josh Allen to potentially do that. I look at teams like the Dolphins. I know they've re-signed Mostert and everyone else that they signed, Jeff Wilson, but they're the sort of team that like to load up on running backs. The 49ers, they don't count them out just because they got Christian McCaffrey. Imagine if they have Christian McCaffrey and Zeke, that could be an interesting 1-2 punch. I mean, they just decide to sign players for the sake of signing players. I mean, they signed a new QB for absolutely no reason.
I'm going to throw one at you.
Go on then.
And I think it's a little bit out there, but actually it makes sense in my head as a landing spot. Competing team, goal line work available for Zeke. Short term, Cincinnati.
Yeah, there's question marks over Joe Mixon.
I think especially from a behaviour point of view.
Well,
I think they had that choice between the two. I think they've put their faith in Mixon.
But is there a legal case coming Mixon's way?
Yeah. If it's anything like Alvin Kamara, it'll be resolved in 2028.
Correct that. Don't count the Saints out. They've got some cap weirdly, so they could go after someone like Zeke. I think
but we'll get onto them.
No,
I think that's a great fit for a year. Pick up that 20-yard work. Mixon's not really heavy on touchdowns. Burrow's not going to rush it in. I think that gives them another.
What about Baltimore? What about Baltimore if they keep Jackson?
Yeah. Him and Dobbins.
There's a few teams.
That's a proper 1-2 punch.
1-2 punch. I think there's a few teams. I think you're right. I think he could go. I think he's going to have his pick. I think it's a case of if he's not greedy and he takes a small deal. And we saw this with Todd Gurley, right? When Todd Gurley left to go to Atlanta, he didn't take a big deal because he got such a big payout from the Rams. Like he didn't need a big deal. And all right, that didn't work. But my point is, I think Zeke's got more juice in the tank. Having said that, he's going to go into the season age 28 as an old running back. He hasn't got long left. But having said that, his injury profile is very good. He's not missed that many games.
We said
the
that
biggest
last year.
absence of his the biggest absence of his career was when he missed 6 games for the sexual misconduct, which he ended up being cleared for after the fact, and it never went anywhere. So you're looking at Zeke. He's missed 1-2 games a season, but for a running back, it's pretty good. Like he obviously is in shape. He looks after his body. He doesn't get long-term injuries. He's not had ACLs. He's not had serious significant shoulder injuries. I think I look at him and think
he might have a chip on his shoulder now as well.
Exactly, and I think
what you need for a running back.
He's the sort of player that will go to a team and take a 2-year, $5 million deal for a bit of security, a bit of work. Because again, I don't think he needs a huge amount of money. I don't think he needs to sit there and earn. I don't think he needs to sit there and earn 10 million. I don't think he's going to get those kind of money. But like 2-year, $6 million deal, that sort of kind of thing. I think he's going to respect a team that's going to give him a 2-year deal to prove himself, as opposed to a 1-year. But he can also try and pick a ring. So his market will be very interesting to watch over the next few weeks and months. I don't think he goes for the most money. I think he goes for where he wants to go. I mean, he's got those options. So good luck to him. I hope it works out.
Cool. So another team here with multiple players signed up. James Robinson incoming to the Patriots, Juju Smith-Schuster incoming to the Patriots, and Mike Gesicki. Do you see anyone making a real difference there? I mean, Mike Gesicki for me is still going to share that load. They've let, I can't think of his name now. It escapes me. Tight end go. A running back, obviously, Damian Harris is a free agent, so James Robinson and Damian Harris is just going to pick up exactly the same role, as far as I'm concerned. I don't really see it changing. It's just names and players on jerseys that they had swapped. Does that make sense?
Yeah, look, I look at what they do here, and as you say, it's addition, subtraction and addition. So Hunter Henry left in free agency, and they've replaced with Mike Gesicki. A lot of that was probably money related, really. Mike Gesicki is one of those players that's been incredibly underwhelming in the NFL, considering how he tested at the combine and all the hype coming in. He just hasn't delivered. I think he gives Mac Jones something. Is it as good as Hunter Henry in the relationship they had? No. Am I interested in Mike Gesicki as a fantasy tight end? Probably not. He's a sort of player that I think goes undrafted, and then someone will pick him up in the season. And he'll have a run of 3 or 4 games to score touchdowns, and he'll be okay and streamable, but nothing to really let's write home about. James Robinson, I mean, they paid him half decent money James Robinson, which says to me that there is something there in James Robinson that could be interesting. But, let's be honest, he is behind Ramondre Stevenson, who's the incumbent there. And whenever you've got that situation, he's going to be playing and picking up that Damian Harris role. We know he's getting on average, but we don't know how the contract is structured. $4 million a year, 2-year, $8 million deal. I don't think it's anywhere near all that. I think it's going to be a little cheaper, guarantees and all that. But I don't know. They haven't announced all the contract details of that yet. So it's just all we know. It's averaging at $4 million a year, but we don't know how it's structured. So I think, again, James Robinson, am I interested in him in a fantasy perspective? No. Unless I'm handcuffing Ramondre Stevenson.
Any patience for him. He's going to be Damian Harris 2.0, in my opinion.
Yeah, he'll have a couple of games, but nothing interesting. Juju, I think, holds a bit of interest. I think Mac Jones is underrated as a passer. He's highly accurate. Juju in a slot. Listen, Jacoby Myers has been decent, but has he really set the world alight? I think he's been underwhelming. I think this is an interesting move for Juju, and it could go one of two ways. I think because of the fact that with the way that Mac Jones plays in those high percentage throws, that's going to suit the way that Juju kind of played in his good years at the Steelers, towards the later years of Ben's career, in those high percentage, high sort of low risk areas of the field,
shallow big routes and things like that. Yeah,
right. If they can get, if Matt Patricia's not coaching the offense this year and they actually get an offensive coordinator in, which I don't know if that's going to happen or not, then hopefully they can get someone who can scheme Juju open a little bit and make advantage. I think he's going to be a low end. He's going to be that sort of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 fringe. I don't see huge TD upside for him. But if he can get significant volume and he can get himself 120 targets, he becomes interesting.
What he will give you is yards after the catch.
Right.
That is what you gain with Juju. If they can get him the ball.
And that's the upside you get with him.
Yeah.
So that's the upside you get with him. If he can get himself 120, 125 targets on that offense, because I'm looking at who else is on that offense and thinking, there's not a lot there that's going to really compete with him for volume. It's just whether or not he makes the plays. And if he continues to make plays, they'll keep calling his number. We saw this with Jacoby Myers at the end of the season when he made plays. He was, he was getting his number called more. And that's how, people sit here and they slate Mac Jones because he's boring. He's he's pretty robotic in how he plays. But that's perfect for that offense. It's the way that Bill Belichick wants his quarterbacks. He wants to take the emotion out of it. He wants to coach, and he wants him to just make those high percentage throws. Mac Jones is a pretty decent, accurate passer. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I'm a fan of Mac Jones, the way that he plays the game. I like his attitude. I like his sort of swagger. I think he's just overall a pretty. And this is a guy whose career 66.5% completion percentage. Didn't throw that many touchdowns last year. Needs to work on that. Reduce a few turnovers, but I think it's a good move for Juju. I think it's. I'm not saying it's a stellar like, oh my god, I'm going to buy out loads of shares, but he could fall into that nice little range after someone like Adam Thielen and be a value. Yeah, right. I see a path to him being a top 30 player.
Next few, I'm going to chuck in Murf. For me, they're worthless mentioning in real world and fantasy terms. So if you disagree, let me know, but we'll chuck a couple in. We have got Gardner Minshew has signed for the Colts. Paris Campbell has gone to the Giants.
Well, I think Minshew starts.
Do you? Yeah, I think he probably.
I think Minshew do.
I think it's going to be a very
big situation.
Ryan. Yeah, they will cut Matt Ryan.
No, Matt Ryan's a free agent. I think he's got.
I think, isn't he?
Well, yeah. So, I think they cut. I think they cut him. I don't think he's officially free. They might be. But anyway, I think for me, Gardner Minshew is interesting. It's in Superflex, not in a 1 QB, but in a Superflex league, he's someone I'd be sneakily trying to buy low because I think he can keep a job for a year. I always think he's been underrated, and he's always produced decent fantasy numbers when he's played. And when you've got the kind of weapons that they've got on that Colts offense,
minus Paris Campbell
Pittman in particular, he's never there anyway, so that doesn't matter. I sit there and think, okay, I think he could be interesting. So I disagree. I think in a Superflex league, Gardner Minshew was a late round pick. I'd rather go if you're sitting.
If
there
you've got two
about,
QBs and you need a third, is one that you might be able to pick up quite cheap and
right.
Just
he's the sort
hope he
of
has the
guy
role
I'd
when
be
your bye
looking.
week comes by.
That sort of thing. Yeah,
Fair.
that's so. I disagree with that. P Ryan is. I think that.
I didn't mention P Ryan. You did, but hey ho.
Okay,
I don't mind P Ryan to the Broncos. I think if Williams just doesn't come back fit, P Ryan's got a decent shot at making that. He's the start of the season.
He's Melvin Gordon 2.0. That's a split backfield. I know it's a different coaching staff.
We've always said it. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I think he holds some appeal. Not someone I'm rushing out to get, but yeah, whatever. Yep. Who were the other names you mentioned? Sorry,
Jacoby Brissett went to the Washington Commanders.
So again, similar to the Baker situation, but I actually think he probably earns the job. We know that Ron Rivera prefers veterans, but I think he's going to have Sam Howell over his shoulder.
Sam Howell starts, and then if he doesn't deliver,
I don't. I think Brissett starts, and I think Brissett gets the job. I think he played decent last year, and I think Brissett will hold the job until they're out of contention, and then they'll move to Howell.
Fair.
Which won't be long.
Who else we got on here that's not very worth much talking about? Jacoby Myers to the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean he's secondary to Devontae Adams. He'll have some weeks, but not someone I'm that bothered about.
So
yeah. I tell you, there's two players I want to talk about here that I think are interesting.
Yeah, I'm getting to them. We're going to end with them. We're getting the rubbish ones out of the way in the middle.
Okay.
Who did you bring in to host the show, Murf? And I'll rein you in and give you a structure. Give me a structure. So
I'm sorry.
Crikey. Because the next ones is we've got two players signing for the Chicago Bears. Now, one, I like the signing. One, I don't. We've got Donta Foreman at running back for the Bears and Robert Tonyan coming in at tight end. Now, I'll start with the tight end. I think that now just gives them two very touchdown-dependent tight ends, and neither of them can guarantee tight ends. So I think it's totally pointless, and Cole Kmet is probably going to drift off as well, and I don't want either of them particularly much.
Correct.
Donta Foreman, however, I quite like him on the Bears, and I know all the talk here is Khalil Herbert.
No, I love it.
But I think Donta Foreman has shown more in the time in the NFL currently than Khalil Herbert has, and I think Khalil Herbert is a very good explosive running back in terms of long yard carries. But Donta Foreman's got more of a workload type feel to him. And obviously it's an upgrade, I feel, on David Montgomery. Do you agree?
I don't think it's an upgrade on David Montgomery because I actually really like David Montgomery.
I think it is from an organizational point of view. You've got a David Montgomery that's 3 years younger. There's not a lot in it.
He's cheap. Well, he's not even cheaper because I had him on a rookie deal. I like Donta Foreman. The thing about Donta Foreman is he is experienced. He's been around. He's been on a few teams. He had a good year last year. He's got a bit of burst, a bit of explosiveness. He's good yards after contact, similar to Khalil Herbert. I think he's very similar in profile to Khalil Herbert, but better receiver. He's
a better blocker as well, I think, than Herbert.
Better blocker. I think he's someone that I would be interested in the right range in drafts as an upside bet because I think. Listen, I just don't see the Bears
right range. We're thinking round 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that market.
Yeah, I'd say late 5, 6, 7. That running backs because of the situation are always going to go higher.
This is one where I think we spoke. Sorry to cut you off, Murf. We talked about Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon and how you take the second one. I think Foreman and Herbert here is where you're best in the draft to take the second one.
Yeah, potentially, and I think people will jump on Herbert, and I think you're probably better taking Foreman. I think that's the way I would work this. I think Foreman is the guy I would, and I like Herbert. Herbert led a lot of metrics, yards after contact, breaking tackles. He did a lot of things under the radar. A lot of people didn't know about, but I think they're going to be publicly highlighted. I think he's going to be the hotness this year for people. I think people are going to highlight his stats last year. I think they've only got room for regression. I look at this offense, it's a putrid offense. I don't care that DJ Moore's there. They're going to throw the ball 24 times a game. Justin Fields is not convincing me anytime soon. He's a great and elite passer. So again, I don't want the tight ends, as you said, because there's no volume for them. So see you later, bye. They'll get the odd touchdown. I don't care. Maybe you stream one of them as a tight end matchup on a bye week to try and pick a tight end.
I think it'd be horrible to try and pick which tight end to pick.
100%. I mean, you go with Komet. You go with Komet
because
you go with the Komet because he's the incumbent. But yeah, it'd be a difficult one to pick. I wouldn't touch Tonyan with a 10-foot barge pole. I think, but yeah, I like Foreman. I think it's a good move for him. I think he's someone that I think if again you're sitting there thinking of landing spots and opportunities where he could advance himself, there probably weren't that many better spots than that for him. So I get it. I think it's a good move for him. So
awesome.
Yeah, I like it. He's someone I can definitely see buying on redraft this year as someone that to grow a little bit.
So Dante Foreman has come into the Bears to replace the outgoing David Montgomery, who has signed for the Lions. Now, feels like the Lions are signing players every other day right now. And obviously, offensively, they haven't. You look down the list and they haven't. Defensively, they've done a lot of work. And it's really took shape. And I love this Montgomery pickup to the Lions. A real experienced back. I think he'll take over much of what Jamal Williams did last year. So I think we'll still see Swift being a viable, playable asset. But I think David Montgomery is going to be there for the third and short scenarios. I think he's going to be there for the fourth down bits. I think he's going to be there for goal line work. I see David Montgomery.
Don't forget, DeAndre Swift is not a player that you can sit here and bank on is going to play 16 games.
Nope.
Never has.
Nope.
Never has played 16 games. You know, in his career, he's never started more than 8 games in the season. That was last season.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you only start one running back. He made appearances. He's always sort of played 13, 14 games. But, you know, we're looking at his totals. Last year, he ran the ball 99 times.
Yeah.
In his career, in 3 years, he's only rushed the ball 364 times.
Oh,
so DeAndre Swift is not a guy. No, it's 120 a year, 121 a year. That's what he's running, and that's what he does a year. So there's tons of work here for David Montgomery. Everyone's going to sit here and think, "Oh, what do I do here?" David Montgomery's the back again. David Montgomery will be the cheaper back here. Everyone's still got this love for Swift, like Richard.
To put that into context, how many times did he rush in 3 years?
Who? DeAndre Swift.
Yep.
364 in 3 years.
Josh Jacobs was 340 last year.
Right, exactly that. He's had one season.
Yep.
Well, this is what I mean. So like I've never understood this hype of like DeAndre Swift's a second round pick. I didn't get it last year. I didn't get it the year before.
No. You're right.
I don't get it. I've never got it. It never made sense to me. I always went, get the cheaper back. Jamal Williams was a great pickup last year.
Yeah, he was.
And I think David Montgomery is going to be a good value this year because people are still going to think it's Swift's backfield, which I think is mind-boggling. I don't understand how anyone who can run the ball 120 times a year can claim to have a backfield. Yeah, he does get significant receiving work. I mean, he's had 205 catches. So, you know, you add the two together and you're looking at 570 career touches, which isn't bad, but 570 over 3 years, that's not even 200 a year. It's not a huge workload.
Nope.
Yeah, give me David Montgomery. I think he's shown he can carry the rock, he can carry the workload, and I think, as you say, he inherits. I don't think he's going to be as good as Jamal Williams last year with the efficiency of touchdowns, but I do think he's going to get more. I think it's different. I think that you'll probably see David Montgomery on the first down, second down work. I think you'll see him be the designated starter because that's what he does. He's the pounding runner, goes down the team. And then I think you'll see Swift transition to 2-minute offense, third and short situations, receiving work, third and long situations. I think you're going to see Swift probably line up out wide sometimes. I think you're going to see Swift do more of the receiving work. That seems to be where he's better fit as a player. So I think you'll see David Montgomery do the donkey work, but then I also think David Montgomery inherits all the goal line work. So I think anything inside the 5 is not going to be, and that's where I think that's where your value is going to be on someone like David Montgomery. So I think you're going to get David Montgomery late, and I think he's going to be a decent pickup. I think if you can get him round 7 or later in a redraft league right now, I'd be banging the drum and think, I'm going to punch that ticket because I think you could do a lot worse.
Awesome. So I think that last one, David Montgomery to the Lions to replace Jamal Williams because Jamal Williams, segue again, absolutely perfectly seamless, has gone to the Saints.
We need to see what happens with Alvin Kamara, but he's someone that right now, if you can try and do a deal for him, Yeah, I think if you can do a deal for him on the grounds that you think that Kamara's going to, miss 6 games, yeah, I think I wouldn't pay too much.
Nope.
But I think if you can get him for like a 3rd round rookie pick in Dynasty, I'm probably shipping, because I look at this rookie class, and I'm going to leave that more to the Dynasty show. We'll probably do little bits as we get
as we go through, yeah.
But I think as you get to pick 26, 27, I'm kind of done with this class. Yep. I kind of think there's a few guys in round 3 that have some interest, but there aren't many. I think once I'm sort of down 28 players max, I'm kind of done. So I think if I can trade all my late round picks, even the 3rd, 4th, and 5th for Jamal Williams, I'm probably going to do it because I think I'm going to get 6 games of starting worthy. And if I'm contending, I'm probably going to get 6 games minimum out of Jamal Williams. Yeah. A minimum 4. I expect 6. And I think if you can get 6 games out of Jamal Williams at starter level on the Saints, yeah, I'm probably doing that.
You're okay
I think
with
I'm
that,
probably going to do that. Yeah, I think if I'm short of running back and I need a guy for 6 games early out of the blocks, especially if I get a guy injured in camp, yeah, I'm probably going to have that for a bit of depth. So I'd trade the late round picks, try a 3rd, because I think people will give you Jamal Williams. It's a really short-term move. Probably on paper it looks bad, but I don't think there's anything in the 3rd round here past pick 28 that you're going to be interested in. So I'd probably ship it and buy him, because I also think if Alvin Kamara, if that situation escalates and gets worse, there's video now that's come out. They could cut him. It's not outside the realms of possibility here that Alvin Kamara leaves the team.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if they can void his contract, they would probably look to do it.
And the Saints have already got a running back friendly QB in. They've got Derek Carr in there, who Josh Jacobs has proved he can work with a running back. Josh Jacobs is perfectly sustainable alongside Derek Carr. So it's not like they've got a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance or someone that's just going to keep running the ball themselves. They're going to rely on a running back. So
yeah, 100%. So that's what I think.
Awesome. Murf, we're running on a bit, so we'll take 5 minutes. A few big names still left in free agency here. I don't know if we want to do some potential landing spots or what you're hoping to see, but offensively, we have OBJ, Odell Beckham still out there. We've got Dalton Schultz has gone from the Cowboys, Damian Harris from the Patriots we mentioned. Singletary, I'm expecting to re-sign with the Bills. Irv Smith coming off his injury, Nelson Aguilar, and obviously Leonard Fournette leaving the Bucs. What do you see with these guys? Anything jumping at you?
Odell Beckham Jr. is definitely the one to watch here. I know he's coming off that injury. I know that he didn't play last year, but Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be an interesting one. I think there's a few teams that, I sit there and think could be a really good fit. Return to the Giants, I think, would be really good. I look at maybe the Vikings as a really good fit there to go alongside Justin Jefferson. I think that because they've transitioned Jefferson into this sort of elite Cooper
hybrid type receiver, isn't they?
Yeah. So to get him in there, I think would be good. Don't rule out the Packers because Jordan Love hasn't got anyone to throw to, and they've got a load of money. And especially if they clear the Aaron Rodgers contract, they're going to have the most cap in the NFL. So don't be too surprised if the Packers decide to give Jordan Love some toys, which would be hilarious and ironic. I think there's a few. I think there's a few landing spots for him. I mean, look, for me, the Packers would be, because there's no one there other than Christian Watson. That for me just feels like Odell Beckham with it'd be a whole fresh Packers.
He'd be the superstar as well, which I think appeals to OBJ.
That's what I mean. He'll be a small town, not great, but I think
big football town
in terms of. But big football town, and he'll be the big superstar name, and the big fish in a small pond. That suits OBJ. I think he could be interesting there. I think you're looking at the kind of coaching staff. It's quiet, keep out of trouble. I think I look at move. I think that probably is the one that makes the most amount of sense to me. And I think for a fantasy perspective, I'd be dialed in a little bit to get in there, because I think although we don't know much about Jordan Love, we do know that he was taken the first round. They have kept him on the roster. This has always been their plan to bring him in at some point. So they obviously have some faith in him.
Anybody else in the world of light?
Dalton Schultz. I mean, listen, there's teams that need tight ends. You're looking at the Buccaneers potentially. You're looking at the Raiders, although apparently they're interested in OJ Howard. There's a few teams. I think Dalton Schultz is a really good tight end. I think, he's got to land somewhere. Even personally, if he can get to the Bengals, that's what I'd love. If he can get to the Bengals, I think that would be for me. I know there's a lot of mouths to feed on there, but they've let tight ends go. I think for me, that would be the one I'd love to see that happen. DJ Chark, we talked about Panthers. Damian Harris, I don't really care.
He'll pick up a job somewhere, but don't matter.
He'll pick up a job. He's the sort of person I can see signing for like the Eagles to go along with Rashard Penny and Boston Scott and just fill a role. That's the sort of thing that he just gets a job,
still there, but
not all that exciting. Devin Singletary, I could see him re-signing if he doesn't go anywhere. I could see him going to. I think the Bucs are going to be in for someone. So I think I look at these names and I don't think they're going to go for Harris. I don't think they're going to go for a plodder. I think they're going to want someone who's a bit more.
Who did they bring in at running back? Bucs have signed the running back.
Just signing for the league minimum. I know. It's just totally escaped me. I should know this.
We should know this. On 2 counts.
Oh, it's because I wasn't all that excited about it. No. Chase Edmonds.
That's it. So I don't think we will sign Chase Edmonds, to be honest.
I think Chase Edmonds comes in for Gio Bernard. So I think the Leonard Fournette role is still vacant. I don't think Chase Edmonds is coming in to compete with that. I think
we draft him
because of the money.
But we'll see.
Could happen. I wouldn't do it this year. But Irv Smith, tight end, don't care. Nelson Aguilar, don't care. Leonard Fournette is interesting. So Leonard Fournette is interesting because I could see him going. I thought he was going to go to the Patriots, and then James Robinson's gone there, so that's not going to happen now.
It nearly happened last year,
So I think Fournette could go to the Bills. I think if they could get the money right, I think that kind of makes some sense. But is he a disruptor? Is he going to fit in with the culture? I don't know. I think I look at. I think Dallas are in the market. I think they will go cheaper at running back. I don't think they're going to give it all to Pollard. I think so. Fournette to the Cowboys could make a lot of sense for me. I think that makes more sense than any of the others. I think he's that kind of name and done it. And he's got a ring. I think that could make a lot of sense for me.
Two to come to mind for me. NFC West is going to the Seahawks with Penny on his way out and sharing that with Kenneth Walker, or even to the Rams because I don't think Cam Akers is starting back.
Yeah, I don't see the Rams spending the money. I think that's my one thing is I think the Rams are kind of just prepared to just let this year go and not do a lot. But I do think, could do. I think the Rams could be in for someone like a Damian Harris. That could work nicely for them. Yeah, I think they like a plodder. I think they're quite happy to take one who's just going to run up the gut and
spent money on.
They've never really gone out and made a big splash at running back. They've always just brought in dudes. And I think Damian Harris will fit that. But even Devin Singletary, I can see either of those going out. I can't see Fournette. I think he's got a little bit too much, won a little bit more money as well.
More limelight.
Arizona's interesting. I know they got James Conner there. James Conner injury prone, contract there. I could see them maybe pushing. Listen, I think there's a few teams that need running backs out there. I could see the Bucs in for Singletary potentially. As a first down back, like similar to the old Rojo role, and then having Rashard White in the more dynamic role, like the Leonard Fournette kind of role. I could see that happening. I think there's some interesting ones happening, but there's not a lot of offensive talent here left in terms of we're talking about guys like Nelson Aguilar or Irv Smith. We're not talking about like the elites at the position. There aren't that many great offensive players here now that are left on the rope. And this is what I mean. I think it's been a pretty weak free agency class other than quarterback. I don't think there's been loads here. So a few running backs left, not a lot of receivers. I think the wide receiver free agency class this year has been pretty poor. There hasn't been those sort of elite players. I think we're going to rely on trades for that to be big. So see what happens.
I think we'll see a lot of trades
over the next week. Some of
them
shake out.
I think we're going to see a lot of trades for the draft live,
in the lead up and live. I agree with you.
Yeah, super. 2 minutes in Murf rundown, 5 yard. What we got going on? FFCC, where we at?
Usual contest is on. Had some more donations pour in, so thank you very much. Love to see more come in. Guarantee your spot. Enter the FFCC. We're going to start doing some, start getting some guests in next few weeks just to get draft ready. So we're going to start breaking down some rookies by some rookies, but then also start looking at free agency and the shakedown and how we expect some of these teams to go through. So we might do a couple of divisions per episode and start looking at how teams break down.
Nice.
But if there are other things that you want to do on the show or you want to see or hear, then please do. Patreon's there. Going to start dropping some Patreon content as well. But really, I think this point is now just getting draft ready. We'll do a couple of also some dynasty startup mock drafts. So if you're interested in those, drop me a line or drop Dan a line, either on Twitter. Handles are on the screen. And when we do one, we'll give you a notification to say when we're going to do it. We'll do some live drafts. You can come on the show, plug any content you're doing, and give us a chat about some picks. And we'll do a nice little couple of rapid drafts just to get some pricing before draft day and after draft day. So if you're interested in those, do that. But that's it, really. Just stick with us as we keep building some momentum here. Like I said, we're going to have some great guests very, very soon. Some of the best in the industry are going to come on. And we're going to start sharing some knowledge, but we're just sort of breaking into this part of the season. Let free agency settle down, and then we'll start breaking down as we start to see these rosters take a bit of shape. Who are some draft players that we want to see, where landing spots, and seeing what prices are for mock drafts, and maybe even do some rookie mock drafts as well. We'll see how we get on.
Awesome. All right, then, Murf. Until next week, I guess.
Yeah, till next week, get in touch with us. Any questions you want us to pick up on the show as well, always happy to pick up. You can join us on the live streams and we'll answer those questions live, or alternatively drop us a DM as well. And if you are interested in joining the mocks, then do let us know. Always happy to have you here, and we're always happy to pick up any questions as well. But until next week, as always, don't forget, keep rushing.